The lies we believe. Fake news exposing the lies we believe. We're spending the summer working our way through statements that are one of two things. Statements that are either things that we've heard that sound really nice, that seem like they're commonplace, but just lurking under the surface is danger. Or we're going to talk about statements that people have attributed to God over the years that God has actually never said. And we're going to talk about these statements that we think sound really nice and feel really nice and make us feel like our heart warms a little bit and we go, oh, that just makes me feel so good about what I'm doing or thinking. But just under the surface, danger lurks. You see, we live in a world that's very difficult to determine and discover right versus wrong and truth versus lies. I shared a little bit with you last week, but I don't know if you've ever spent time trying to figure out news and figure out whether something was true or false. In fact, the Gallup Research Institute in the States came out with a poll yesterday. They've been doing it annually every July since 1967. And this year, the news agencies, the internet, and religious organizations are at an all-time low trustworthiness from the people in America. Now, I know that's not Canadians, but we're very closely linked. And Gallup came out with their research yesterday saying that for the first time, or the lowest time in the history of Gallup Research Organization since 1967, they've been doing this annually, getting feedback from people as to what the trustworthiness of the news agencies, the government, and the religious agencies are. And this year, it's at an all-time low. The only one that tied was the U.S. Congress, tied for the lowest ever, and 21% of people had a seeming favorable view of the U.S. Congress, tied for the lowest. We live in a culture that the goalposts are shifting in our life, and it almost seems like week after week, the end zone that we've been shooting for in our life, all of a sudden, the next week, the goalposts have changed. And where we used to think we were headed to make sure that we were going to score a touchdown in our life or we were going to find a successful point, now the goalposts change. And it's moved us from the things that we used to think were good. Some of them are now bad, or some of them are not even considered anything anymore. Or the things that we used to consider bad are either flipped to now they look good, or they're not considered bad or good, they're just nothing. You don't look at them at all anymore. We live in a society and a culture that takes our goalposts and moves them all the time. And last week we talked about the idea of exposing the philosophy of you do you. And how our culture has shifted into saying, oh, well, I've heard people say, I'm not going to do this justice, but people say, you go girl, you do you. You go girl, you do you. And we expose the lie of you do you, and it sounds really nice, and it rhymes kind of, and it sounds really colloquial in our saying, and it sounds like, oh, that's really empowering and that's great, but just under the surface of you do you is the trap that leads us into either insecurity or arrogance. You do you leads you down a road that you sometimes can't recover from. Because what happens if when you do you impinges on what happens when I do me, all of a sudden, you doing you isn't so righteous anymore because it's impacting me doing me. And what happens when I do me and it impacts you do you? All of a sudden, those things don't work. And the truth is, all you have to do is put two people together, even people who are madly in love, like madly in love, they fight. I got almost a white hanky over here. We should bring back the white hankies. No, we shouldn't bring back the white hankies. No, I'm just joking. We could. That'd be fun. You see, even people who are madly in love fight. And if we just lived under you do you, then eventually you doing you would upset me doing me. So what happens? We exposed that last week for the lie that it is really. Today we move into our second fake news idea, and it's not you do you, it's closely linked, it's just follow your heart. See, just follow your heart is a lie that I'm going to expose today. It's a wonderfully pleasant sounding saying. It sounds very romantic. It sounds very poetic, because the truth is, who doesn't want to think our hearts are good? But if you look at society, society says, well, in everyone's heart there's good. That's a whole different message. But we've lived this lie that everybody has good, and the only thing that corrupts people is their parents. Listen, racism doesn't exist because a parent taught their kids racism. Racism exists because the human heart is flawed. The human heart is broken. Theft doesn't exist because a parent taught their kid how to thief. My child steals food all the time. And not because I taught her how to. Pastor Lindsay did. My daughter knows Daddy doesn't share food off my plate. I share food, just not off my plate. It's on my plate. If you want to share food, I'll give you the whole plate. I'm OCD. Don't touch my plate. You touch my plate, you can have the whole food plate because you now contaminated it and it's now going to hell. Some of you were like, sounds really nice, just follow your heart. We've written countless books and seen hundreds of movies and watched Broadway plays. And Hollywood actors portray the idea of just following your heart, of this fairy tale story that led these people to lifelong bliss of just follow your heart, and they're running away, but you need to catch them at the airport. They're going away, but you need to run after them in a taxi cab. They're running away. You need to get on a dirt bike or a motorcycle. You need to find them, and then it's marriage bliss and wonderful relational bliss. Just follow your heart. Problem is, that's bred a society that has tried everything else and now lives in this place of saying, just follow your heart. Where we've given people a lie that sounds really nice and sounds really poetic and sounds really positive and sounds like it's going to be good and sounds like if you just follow your heart, at the end of that follow your heart is this rainbow filled with a pot of gold, which is a dream person, a dream guy, a dream girl, a dream job, a dream anything. It's very closely linked to you do you. You see, we talked last week about you doing you. I believe you do you is about so-called empowerment. Well, you go, girl, you do you. You go, man, you do you. You just get empowered. You do what you feel like. Do what you believe in. Whereas just follow your heart isn't about empowerment. Follow your heart is about sentiment. If you do you is, I believe it, so I'm going to do it. I'm convinced of this. I'm convicted of it in my heart. I'm just going to do it. You do you. You believe it's strong enough. It must be good enough. You just do you. Well, just follow your heart is not about that. Follow your heart is, well, I feel it, so I'm going to go after it. The truth is, God has a lot to say about the heart. In fact, if you were to read the Bible, I wouldn't recommend trying to read it cover to cover in one day. But if you were to read the Bible, you would discover that over 600 times the Bible uses the word or the phrase heart, not to do with your physical heart, but to do with that desire thing that's inside us. Over 600 times the Bible talks about this thing in our life called our heart. Not the physical thing that pumps the blood, but the heart that gives birth to desires. The thing that feels things, the thing that has wishes and dreams. God talks about it over 600 times. And in fact, when the world says, I want you to catch this, when the world says just follow your heart, God actually says the exact opposite. Literally the exact opposite is what God says in the Bible of just follow your heart. But God does have a lot of things to say. But the one thing God says about your heart is this. When the world says just follow your heart, God says you can't trust your heart. Now that's a really hard thing to hear. Because in our culture, we've been told that your heart is this wonderful place with puppies and bubbles and roses and clouds and soft colors and rainbows and pots of gold. And your heart is just, everything is good in your heart. And everyone's heart is just wonderful. And if we could just remove all the difficulties of people's lives, all of our hearts would be good. That's what we hear. That's what we see. That's what we're told. That's what we understand. And the only reason that people have bad hearts is because something's bad that's happened to them. And that's the only reason they have bad hearts. And if we could just remove all the bad stuff, then their hearts would actually get better. Where God actually says you can't trust your heart. In fact, Jeremiah chapter 17, verse 9 says it this way. And I wish I could put on the Lord of the Rings voice. I wish I could put on a British accent when I read it, because it sounds very ominous when I read it with my mind. But it says this: the heart is hopelessly dark and deceitful, a puzzle that no one can figure out. The human heart is hopelessly dark and deceitful. It's a puzzle no one can figure out. Wow! Ouch! That is not fun language. Puppies and bubbles and rainbows, that is not language that makes you go, oh, rhyme, roses are red, violets are blue, the heart is deceitfully. You know, like it just doesn't fit with one of those things. It's a dark poem if you were to read it. It's not one of those ones that engenders, oh, this is going to be a fluffy, wonderful thing. But the problem is this: we can't deal with lies by just giving nice platitudes. To expose lies, you have to bring the truth. Did you know that truth by definition is exclusive? We say that again. Truth by definition is exclusive. If there's truth, there must be false. And if there's false, there must be truth. And so God just slaps us upside the head a little bit through Jeremiah, and he says the human heart is hopelessly dark and deceitful. Now, let me say this. Not everything and every desire in the heart is deceitful and wrong. It's not what God is saying. Just because it isn't right doesn't make it wrong. Did you know that? And just because it isn't wrong doesn't make it right. Almost never is it wrong for you to buy a car. It's not illegal for you to buy a car. For most of you, I hope. It's not illegal to buy a car. It's not illegal to buy a television. But just because it isn't illegal doesn't make it morally right. There's no moral attachment to it. But there is a bigger question there: is it wise? You see, just because something isn't right doesn't automatically make it wrong. But that's the world we live in. We say, well, if it isn't right, then it must be wrong. No, it just isn't right. It doesn't make it wrong. It just isn't right. And just because it isn't wrong doesn't make it right. It just isn't wrong. It's nothing. It's not right or wrong. It just is. And there's lots of things in our heart that aren't wrong. There's lots of things that in our heart aren't right. It's not wrong to want a degree in biology. Maybe for me it is, but maybe not for you. It's not morally right or wrong. There's lots of desires in our hearts that God is talking about. He said, that's not what I'm talking about. When I was 17, I had my very first girlfriend. Yeah, it was not a good time. My dad, no, it wasn't. He knows where I'm going with this story. He didn't know I was going to tell this story, but my very first girlfriend, and she lived on the other end of the GTA, and I lived on the other end, opposite sides from each other, the GTA. And I just fell head over heels for this girl in the summer. I gave her everything in my heart. 17 years old, I knew what the world had to offer. I knew what I wanted, and I reached out and I took it. She was my girlfriend, and I was her boyfriend. And it was wonderful bliss. And I just head over heels for this girl, and once a month I would get to go to her house for the weekend, as long as her parents were home. And once a month she would get to come to, the next month she'd get to come to my house for the weekend, as long as my parents were home. And I just was so in lust with this girl. Did no one catch that? Parents caught it, right? That this is back in the day. There's no cell phones. There's no email. There's no text messaging. There's just landlines attached to a cord to the wall. And I found this company that I could buy this phone from for $100. And this company would then, instead of charging me 70 cents per minute to call the other side of the GTA, it was only 16 cents per minute. And I bought this phone for $100, and I set it up in the spare room of our house. And every Wednesday night at 7 p.m., it was my time to call my girlfriend because it was the only way you could talk. And I would pick up this phone, and we would talk for hours or until it hit $30. And I just was head over heels for this girl, and I actually did something I've never done before. But it was the summer that the Robin Hood movie came out. Everything I do it for you. 17 years old, everything I do it for you. I've only known you 3 months. Everything I do it for you. There's no... Sorry. Sorry, is nobody else relating to some of this stuff? Sorry, am I the only person who's real in the room? Come on. It's church, it's not the morgue. So, I decide I'm going to write her a poem. Who writes poetry at 17 years old? Now, I like poetry, but I am not a poet. And 17 years old, I write her this poem, a full-page poem. I was on drugs somehow. And I'm in the middle. It took me 2 months to write this poem because it wanted to be perfect. And I hand wrote it with like squigglies and, it's just awful. It makes me want to throw up when I think of it. All of a sudden, things started to change in our relationship, and I realized, well, she wasn't home anymore on Wednesdays at 7 o'clock when I would call. It's been 8 months, and what's happening? So all of a sudden, I get this poem, I finish, and this was back in the day, no text message, no email. I mailed it to her. And she would mail it to me, like we'd mail, actually snail mail, back and forth in my lifetime. Man, that makes me feel old. She actually sent me a mixtape. Not an iPod Shuffle, not a Spotify playlist, a mixtape with the wheels in it, and the lead song was, Everything I do it for you. And I played that tape until it was, everything I do it for you. Come on. You got to laugh at that. It's ridiculous. It is, my dad, it is. I didn't know that at the time my parents did not approve of this relationship at all. They were praying that God would somehow break us up every moment of every day. It's a true story. I learned after we broke up. We were praying every day. Get to her house. I'm thinking this is going to be wonderful. She has my poem. I walk in the door and she's like, got the poem in her hand. I'm like, she must be so moved. This is incredible. This is going to be wonderful. I need to talk to you. Oh, this is powerful. It's not you, it's me. And all I heard after that was blah, 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 blah. The weekend did not go well, did not go long. Called my parents, drove all the way over to the other side of the GTA, picked me up. I go home, I'm broken. My heart is shattered. I have poured out to this girl in poetry. At 17. Shattered my heart. Week and a half goes by. I got to win her back. I got to get her back. Something's got to happen. I've given this girl my heart. I got to get her back. So you know what I do? I come up with this great idea. Fabulous idea. Her mom loved me. Her mom used to, it's wonderful. Your boyfriend is a preacher's kid. It's wonderful. Like her mom just thought the sun shined out of everywhere in me. I thought, I will call her mom. And her mom will convince her that I'm the right guy for her. So pathetically, I know, Nikiro, you're just dying inside right now. She can barely even contain it. So I call, with a broken heart, I call my ex-girlfriend's mother. Desperate is the word. And I get on the phone. Oh, hi, Jason. I said, hi. Talked to her for a half an hour, and I just poured out my heart. Just sobbed my story all over her. After 30 minutes, I was done with my story. Well, Jason, you're a good kid. She's seeing somebody else. Get over it. Click. I'm devastated. Devastated. Turns out she loved her daughter more than me. Go figure. I was so embarrassed and so broken that I decided it was a good idea to phone my ex-girlfriend's mom and talk about my ex-girlfriend to my ex-girlfriend's mom to get her to convince her to come back with me. I was so broken by following my heart that I made a ridiculous decision. Completely ridiculous. To this day, I feel embarrassed about it. When that song comes on the radio, I get a little bit embarrassed. I think, oh my goodness, I can't believe I called my ex-girlfriend's mother. The definition of insanity. See, the problem is when you just follow your heart, what happens when your heart gets broken? See, when the world says to you, just follow your heart, what happens when your heart gets broken because you followed your heart? What do you do then when your heart is shattered and the only thing you can turn to is, well, I followed my heart. It was supposed to lead me to the puppies and the bubbles and the rainbows and the pot of gold. It was supposed to lead me to her. It was supposed to lead me to him. What do I do with my heart broken now? Truth is, it will get broken. It might not be a romantic relationship. It might be a family member that breaks it, or a child, or a parent, or a friend, or a circumstance. You see, broken things rarely make good decisions, especially broken hearts. In fact, broken hearts tend to set up walls rather than make good decisions. I want you to catch this. It'll be on the screen. Many times, go to the next screen, broken hearts become angry hearts. And angry hearts become bitter hearts. Bitter hearts become cold hearts. Cold hearts become hard hearts. And hard hearts become stone. And stones hurt. The Bible says that the heart, in other translations, is deceitfully wicked above all things. Who can manage it? Filled with wrong desires. Some good things, some not so good things, some neutral things, but the heart is something you cannot manage on your own. And eventually it leads to stone, and stones hurt. Just follow your heart, no matter how poetic, no matter how romantic, no matter how authentic. Just around the corner, just under the surface, lurks danger that can actually lead to death of just follow your heart. Just follow your heart as a life motto, just under the surface, just around the corner, is something waiting to destroy you. That corner might be longer than someone else's corner. It might be further down under the surface than someone else's level. But just follow your heart leads you to danger. So if we can't trust our heart, then what can we do? If we can't trust our heart, then what can we do? What is the answer? What does God say is the answer to just follow your heart? And how flawed that is. Well, God says the exact opposite of just follow your heart, and I want to show you some of the things the Bible says. They'll be on the screen. If we can't just follow our heart, what are some of the things that God says we can do with our heart? He says this: examine your heart. Discipline your heart. Fill your heart with Him. Clean your heart. Submit your heart to Him. Check on your heart. Pour out your heart to God and to someone else you can trust. Guard your heart. The rest of that verse says, for out of it springs all of the rest of the life you have. Guard your heart, for out of it is the wellspring of life. Out of it is the well of your life. Guard your heart. You can't just follow your heart, because you need to guard it, because if it gets broken, out of that then comes broken things. We've all heard the line that hurting people hurt people. Broken things break more things. Listen, The truth is, God gave us our heart. It's not an invention of humanity. God gave us the hearts with the desires to feel, the abilities to hurt, the abilities to feel joy. God gave us our hearts. Our hearts are something God gave to us. The problem is we broke it. We broke God's plan. I want to say this line to you. Your heart and my heart wasn't created to be governed by us. It was created to be submitted by us to God. Your heart and my heart was not created to be governed by us, where we become the boss of our own heart. Our heart, God created our heart absolutely 100% to be submitted to God. The Bible says that submit your ways to Him and He will make your paths straight. Now, we think that means without hills and valleys. No, it just means straight. Still lots of hills, lots of valleys. Lots of stuff you have to go through, but it's straight. Submit your heart to God. Submit your ways to God. God says, submit yourself to me. But I want you to see what else God said revolving around Jeremiah 17, chapter 9. If you go back there, the whole thing will be on your notes. And I want to show you what God does by sandwiching this line, don't trust your heart. I want to show you. It'll be on the screen. It says this. It begins with this. Blessed is the man who trusts me, God. Blessed is the man who trusts me, God, and the woman who sticks with God. So blessed is the woman and man who sticks with God, who trusts God. Catch this. They are like trees replanted in Eden. Eden is the Garden of Eden. It's where God started everything. It's God's original purpose. It's God's original plan. Catch this. It's when you trust God, it's like your life becomes like you've been replanted in God's plan, putting down roots near the rivers, never a worry through the hottest summers, never dropping a leaf, serene and calm throughout droughts, not without droughts, throughout droughts. Bearing fresh fruit every season, not just the season where it's time to bear fruit, but through every season, winter, spring, summer, fall. Then he says this in the middle. He says, the heart is hopelessly dark and deceitful, a puzzle no one can figure out. This is God's good news. But I, God, search the heart, and I examine the mind. I get to the heart of the human. I get to the root of things, and catch this. Fake news, I treat them as they really are, not how they pretend to be. You see, when God looks at the heart, He doesn't just come out and say, well, let's pretend that just follow your heart works. God's the master of exposing lies. He's the master of exposing deceit. He comes out and He says, don't just follow your heart. Your heart can't be trusted. This is what He says. Trust me. If you follow your heart, you are in line for danger. But if you trust God, He will make it, catch this, He will make it like you've been replanted in His original plan. He will make it so you have security, as in you don't have to worry about the drought, even though the drought happens. He will then make it so that you have fulfillment. It means that you have serenity and calmness around you. Even though the storm is there and the drought is there, you have safety and security and fulfillment, and you also have fruitfulness. He will make sure that your life produces good things in all the seasons of your life, even in drought. Problem is we buy into the lie of just follow your heart, because just follow your heart promises us fruit in summer. Just follow your heart promises fruit for a season. And then it leaves you with fall and winter. But when you trust God, there's fruit all the season. It doesn't mean that you don't have drought. Catch this. It doesn't mean that you don't go through hard times. Having a relationship with God does not take you out of this world and say, oh, everything's just wonderful and everything is perfect. That's not how it works. It just means that in the middle of drought, you still don't have to be someone who loses your leaves. And not only do you not lose leaves, you can still produce fruit. Fresh fruit in all seasons. When the world says follow your heart, God says you can't trust your heart, but you can trust me. Problem is that we think following our heart means we will find all the things I just talked about. The world says when you follow your heart, you know what you're going to find? You're going to find security. It's going to feel good. Just follow your heart, you're going to find fulfillment. Yeah, for a season. The world says when you follow your heart, you know what? You're going to get fruitfulness. All this great stuff is going to come, and for 8 months it's going to be wonderful, and all of a sudden she's not going to pick up your calls anymore. And then just follow your heart has led to a broken heart. I want you to listen to this line. I'm going to invite Pastor Lindsay to come. I want you to listen to this line. And I don't mean this as a slam toward my relationship experience in the past, but here's the problem. Just follow your heart is a lie disguised as an ex-girlfriend's mom. Who you think thinks the world of you, but when the rubber hits the road, they smack you off to the side. And what matters more to them is their stuff than yours. Just follow your heart is a lie that looks just like an ex-girlfriend's mom. And when the chips are down, they leave you with an answer you didn't want to hear. Am I proud of what happened in my life back then? No. I did learn some pretty big lessons there. When my heart got broke, I set up some walls for quite a while. I was mad at girls for quite a while. I was mad at girls' moms for quite a while. See, this heart is this puzzle. Who can figure it out? And if you're honest with yourself this morning, your heart is a puzzle. There are all these emotions swirling around in your heart at all times. It's this puzzle that we desperately try and fit together, and what we do is we try and go, oh, I want my puzzle to look like that, and so we pursue our heart over here, and then we discover that that piece doesn't fit our puzzle. And then we go, I want my heart to look like that, so I follow my heart over here. I want my life to look that way, and we get over here and we discover that after jamming that puzzle piece in and jamming that puzzle piece in, we broke off the one piece. And it happened to be one of the pieces of our heart that's already in there. And now our heart's broke. Because our hearts are puzzles that none of us can fully fathom except the one who created our heart. Except the one who created us, who knows you. I love the Spanish word for heart, corazón. Mi corazón. Every time I hear people say it, I'm like, oh, it sounds so good. If you listen to parents talk to their kids, they'll go, oh, mi corazón. My heart. My heart. Come to papi, mi corazón. I'm not saying that to you, Donette. That's not what I'm saying. Donette sits right here and she gets it every week. But God is here today going, come to papi, mi corazón. Bring your heart to Dad. Stop giving your heart to the world and letting it be shattered on all the things you want, the money and the circumstance and the bowl at the end of the rainbow. Stop giving your heart to things that don't fully understand, that keep snapping pieces off. And eventually your heart looks like this puzzle piece with all this tape on it, keeping all these pieces together. Don't just follow your heart. It's an ex-girlfriend's mom just waiting to happen. To give you the news of just get over it. And when you get told just get over it enough, that sets up walls in your heart so that you become hard like stone. And then you wonder why when you have relationships, they don't work out. It's because you're beating people up because you're just stone. Broken. But God says, you can trust me. You can trust me. Because I know your heart. I made your heart. I can heal your heart. I can fill your heart. I can clean your heart. I can transform your heart. In fact, the New Testament says God can take a heart of stone and turn it back into a heart of flesh. God can restore a heart that's broken to the place of stone and bring it back to the place where you feel emotions that God has brought. Mi corazón. Mi corazón. So what about you this morning? Has your life been like one phone call after another to your ex-girlfriend's mom? It's a super practical, simple question. If you were to really think about your heart and your life, has your life been like one phone call after another to your ex-girlfriend's mom? Because you just followed your heart and followed your heart and followed your heart and followed your heart. And sometimes it's led a dead end right away, and other times you've gotten all the way through this maze only to get to the end and realize it wasn't the way out. But now you've given all this time and all this energy, and you've bought the phone, and you've paid the 16 cents a minute, and you've spent 8 months pouring your heart in only to realize, get over it. She's got a new boyfriend. Is your life more like one phone call after another to your ex-girlfriend's mom? Have you just been following your heart? If you're honest, has just following your heart been worth it? Let me ask you this question. Would you love to discover what it is to have security, fulfillment, and fruitfulness in your life? Doesn't mean it's going to be without problems. Doesn't mean you're not going to go up hills and into valleys. Doesn't mean you're not going to struggle and have to fight up things and push to get back out of things. But are you here today and you'd be honest and say, I've just followed my heart and I've had too many dead ends, but I really do, Pastor Jay, I really want fulfillment. I want security. And I want fruitfulness. If that's what you want, here's the secret. It's in the first line of Jeremiah 17:7. As a guy, if you'll just trust God. As a woman, if you'll just trust God. If you will give your heart to God, it's not going to transform everything overnight, but I guarantee you, you will slowly see the path of your life that's done this. You'll start to see it do this. It'll still do this, but eventually, it'll do this. And it won't be like chasing all this stuff over to the side and breaking off your puzzle pieces. It doesn't mean that things don't get broken. It just means that you're now in a relationship with the one who heals it all. And you don't have to worry about fixing it yourself. Because you have a personal relationship with God, and He puts those puzzle pieces back together. All over the room, would you close your eyes with me? I ask you not because it's spiritual. I ask you just because it's private. And I'm going to ask a question of you today. If you would say, For those of you in the room right now, this is very specific. For those of you in the room that you would say you do not know what it means to have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. You do not know what it means to say that you're born again, according to the Bible, the New Testament scriptures. But you would say, Jason, I've been here today. I've been hearing what you're saying. And if I'm honest, I have been following my heart and I've discovered I've been believing a lie. And today I want to give my heart and my life to Jesus Christ for the very first time. This is very specific. This is not for those of you that have done this before. This is for those of you that have never done this. And this is a radical step of you saying, I want to trust God with my life, guy or lady. I want to stick with God. I want to be like that tree replanted in the Garden of Eden. I want to be like the tree putting my roots down near rivers. I want to be like what the Bible says, so that God will get to the root of my heart and see me as I really am, not just how I pretend to be. And right now, in this moment, for the very first time, you would say, I want to give my life to God through Jesus Christ, and I want to invite God into my life to be my Lord and Savior, to be the director of my life, to be the captain of my ship, to be the steering commander of my life's vehicle, and I want to turn my life over to God and say, God, you have my heart. If you're here this morning, and this is your very first time ever, and you would like to make that commitment, I'd like to pray for you at the end of service. Would you? You're here and you'd say, Jason, I have a relationship with God, but the truth is, I've missed it. And I've been following my heart. I've been just following my heart. I haven't been trusting God. I've been following my heart. I've had this lie just exposed to me right now today, Pastor Jay. This lie has just been exposed to me. And I've been following this lie. But you would say right now today that you want to choose God's heart and ways over your own. And you want to say, I'm going to do my best starting today to choose to trust God and not follow my heart. Anybody in the room, you put your hand up. You'd say, that's you. Yes. Yes, yes. Yes, yes. Yes, yes. Just hold up for one moment. You say, I've been following my heart, and I want to choose to trust God. I want to make a shift. Yes? Nobody else is looking. One more call. Anybody else? You want to choose to trust God and not just follow your heart. Yes? Yes? All right, all over the room, you can open your eyes. I'd like you to stand with me. If you're able, stand all over the room. You can trust your heart to the one who made it. You can trust your heart to the God who made it. He loves you, and He wants to see you healthy and whole and fulfilled and fruitful and safe and secure. So I'm going to lead us in a prayer this morning. Would you join me?